I'm gonna pass out candy to my neighbors tonight, but after what happened last Christmas, I triple-check every door before I open it. December 24th, 2019. I remember that date because it was supposed to be perfect. My wife Sarah and I had just moved into our first house together in rural Montana. Small town called Whitewood, population maybe 800 people. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and doors stay unlocked even at night. We loved it. Coming from Seattle, the quietness felt like a gift. That Christmas Eve, Sarah's parents were supposed to drive up from Bozeman, but a snowstorm hit around 3 p.m. and they called to say they couldn't make it. The roads were too dangerous. We understood. Sarah was disappointed because she'd spent 2 days cooking, preparing this massive Christmas dinner for 4 people that now only 2 of us would eat. By 9 p.m., the snow was coming down so hard, I couldn't see our mailbox from the living room window. The power had flickered twice but stayed on. We were watching some old Christmas movie, drinking hot chocolate, and I remember thinking this was actually nice. Just the 2 of us. Our first Christmas in our new home. Then someone knocked on the front door. 3 heavy knocks that echoed through the whole house. Sarah looked at me with this confused expression because we both knew nobody was driving in this weather. The knock came again. Louder this time. More insistent. I got up and walked to the door, and I could feel Sarah watching me from the couch. The living room window had curtains drawn, so I couldn't see who was outside. I reached for the door handle, and Sarah said something that made me stop. "Don't open it yet. Ask who it is." I don't know why, but her voice had this edge to it. This nervousness that made my hand freeze on the handle. "Who is it?" I called out. No answer. Just silence and the howling wind outside. I called out again, louder this time. "Who's there?" Nothing. Sarah stood up from the couch and walked closer. She whispered, "Maybe they can't hear you through the door because of the storm." That made sense. I pressed my ear against the wood and listened. I could hear breathing. Heavy, deliberate breathing. Someone was standing right on the other side of this door, inches from my face, breathing hard enough that I could hear it through solid wood. My stomach dropped. "Someone's there," I whispered to Sarah. "They're not answering, but they're right there." The knocking started again, but this time it wasn't on the door. It was on the living room window, the one with the curtains drawn. Someone was standing outside our window, knocking on the glass with what sounded like something metal. Not their knuckles. Something harder. Sarah grabbed my arm so tight I felt her nails dig into my skin. The knocking moved. From the living room window to the dining room window on the other side of the house. Then to the kitchen window at the back. Someone was circling our house, knocking on every window, and the knocks were getting harder, louder, more aggressive. I ran to the kitchen and yanked the curtain back, pressing my face against the glass to see outside. The backyard was just white. Snow falling so thick it looked like static on a dead TV channel. But I saw something move. A dark shape, tall and hunched, walking past the window and disappearing around the corner of the house. "Call the police," I told Sarah. She already had her phone out, but when she tried to dial, nothing happened. No signal. The storm must have knocked out the cell tower. Our landline was in the bedroom upstairs, so I told her to go get it while I watched the windows. She ran upstairs and I stood there in the kitchen, listening. The knocking had stopped. Everything was quiet except for the wind and the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I heard it, a scraping sound, metal against wood. Someone was trying to pry open the back door. I ran to the door and checked the lock. It was engaged, but the door was old. The wood around the frame was soft and weathered. If someone really wanted to get in, they could. Sarah came back down holding the landline phone, and her face was white. "It's dead. The line is dead." The scraping stopped. Then footsteps. Heavy boots crunching through snow. Multiple sets of footsteps. More than one person. We weren't dealing with one person circling the house. There were several of them out there. I grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her toward the staircase. We need to get upstairs. Now. We ran up to the bedroom and I locked the door behind us. I pushed our dresser in front of it, and Sarah helped me stack whatever we could find against it. Chairs, boxes, anything heavy. From downstairs, we heard the sound of breaking glass. They were inside. Sarah was crying now, trying to muffle the sound with her hand. I pulled her into the closet and we sat there in the dark, hidden behind hanging clothes, barely breathing. Footsteps moved through the first floor. Slow, methodical, like they were searching every room. I heard drawers opening, furniture moving. They were looking for something, or someone. Then the footsteps started coming up the stairs. Each step creaked under their weight. I counted them, 12 steps to the second floor. By the 8th step, Sarah was shaking so hard I had to hold her tight to keep her still. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs and stopped right outside our bedroom door. The handle turned. Once, twice. Then whoever it was pushed against the door. The dresser scraped against the floor, moving an inch. They pushed again. Harder. The dresser moved another few inches. A voice spoke. Male. Deep. Calm. "We know you're in there." Another voice. Female this time. Laughing. "Come out. It's Christmas. Don't be rude." They pushed against the door again and the dresser slid back far enough that I could see a hand reach through the gap. Gloved. Black leather. Fingers stretching toward the space between the door and the frame. I don't know what made me do it, but I grabbed a metal clothes hanger from above us and bent it until I had a straight piece of wire with a hooked end. When that hand reached in again, I jammed the hook into the gap and twisted. Someone screamed. The hand jerked back. Blood smeared across the doorframe. Then silence. For 10 minutes we heard nothing. No footsteps. No voices. Nothing. I finally got the courage to crawl out of the closet and peek through the gap in the door. The hallway was empty. I pushed the dresser aside enough to open the door and look out. They were gone. Downstairs, the back door was wide open. Snow had blown in, covering the kitchen floor. Every window on the first floor was smashed. Our TV was still there. Sarah's jewelry was untouched on the counter. They hadn't stolen anything. But in the middle of our living room floor, written in what looked like ketchup from our fridge, were 2 words: Merry Christmas. We spent that night in our car with the engine running and the doors locked, parked in the driveway until the sun came up. When the police finally made it through the snow the next morning, they found footprints. 6 different sets. 6 people had surrounded our house that night. They never caught them. The investigation went cold after 2 weeks. We moved out 3 months later. I don't care if doors stay unlocked in small towns. I don't care if everyone knows everyone. Some people know you're alone, and that's exactly why they come. Story 2. The Girl in the Santa Hat. I worked night security at a shopping mall outside Cleveland in 2016. The job was simple. Walk the building every hour. Check the locks. Make sure nobody broke in. Most nights, nothing happened. I'd walk my rounds, sit in the security office watching camera feeds, and count down the hours until my shift ended at 6 a.m. December was always the worst month. The mall stayed open later for Christmas shopping, which meant I started my shift at midnight instead of 10 p.m. And the later the mall closed, the weirder the stragglers were. People who waited until the last possible second to leave. People who seemed like they didn't want to go home. December 19th. That's when I met her. I was doing my midnight walk through the building. All the stores were dark except for the emergency lights that stayed on overnight. My footsteps echoed on the tile floor as I walked past empty storefronts and locked gates. When I passed the food court, I saw her, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sitting alone at one of the tables in the dark. She was wearing a red coat and a Santa hat, and she was just sitting there, completely still, staring at nothing. I stopped walking. "Hey!" I called out. "Sweetie, are you lost?" She didn't answer, didn't even look at me. I walked closer, my flashlight pointed at the ground so I wouldn't scare her. "Where are your parents?" Still nothing. She just sat there with her hands folded on the table in front of her, staring straight ahead at the dark subway restaurant across from her. I radioed back to the security office. My partner, Dennis, was watching the cameras. "Hey, Dennis, I got a kid in the food court. Little girl. She's not responding. You see any adults on the cameras?" Static. Then Dennis's voice crackled through. "What are you talking about? There's nobody in the food court." I looked at the girl. She was right there, 10 feet away from me. "Dennis, I'm looking at her right now. Red coat, Santa hat. Check camera 12. Pause. Longer this time. Camera 12 is showing an empty food court. You're the only person on that feed." A chill ran down my spine. I lowered the radio and stared at the girl. She turned her head and looked at me for the first time. Her face was pale, too pale, and her eyes were wrong, completely black. No whites, no color, just solid black from edge to edge. She smiled. "Do you want to play a game?" she asked. Her voice didn't sound like a child's voice. It was too low, too flat, like someone imitating what they thought a child should sound like. I took a step back. "Who are you?" I asked. She tilted her head. "I've been waiting for you. I wait here every year, but nobody ever stays long enough to play." My hand went to the pepper spray on my belt. I don't know why. What was pepper spray going to do against whatever this was? "I need you to leave," I said. My voice cracked. She stood up from the table. Slowly. Her movements were wrong. Jerky. Like her joints didn't bend the right way. "You can't make me leave," she said. "This is my home now." She started walking toward me. Not fast. Just a slow, steady walk. Her feet made no sound on the tile floor. I backed up. My radio was screaming in my hand. Dennis was yelling something, but I couldn't hear him over the sound of my own heartbeat. The girl stopped right in front of me, close enough that I should have been able to feel her breath. But there was nothing, just cold air. "Do you know what happens to people who work alone at night?" she whispered. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. She reached up with one hand. Her fingers were too long, too thin. She touched my chest, right over my heart. "They disappear, and nobody ever knows where they went." Then she was gone, just vanished, like she was never there. I ran, didn't walk, ran straight back to the security office. Dennis was standing up when I burst through the door, his face white. "What the hell just happened?" he said. "You were talking to nobody, just standing there in the food court talking to empty air for 5 minutes." I quit that night, didn't even wait until morning. I walked out, drove home, and never went back. 2 weeks later, I heard the mall hired a new night guard to replace me. Guy named Aaron. He disappeared on Christmas Eve. They found his flashlight in the food court. His radio was on the floor next to one of the tables. But Aaron was gone. Police searched for 3 days. Nothing. No body. No evidence. No signs of a struggle. Just a red Santa hat left on the table where I'd seen that girl sitting. They shut down the mall 6 months later. Not because of Aaron. Officially, they said it was due to low revenue and safety concerns. But I know the real reason. You can't run a business where people disappear. Story 3. The Christmas Carolers. I lived in Vermont for 3 years before moving back to California. Small town called Shelton Falls. Population 1,200. The kind of place where Christmas wasn't just a holiday. It was the event of the year. Every December 23rd, the town did this tradition called the Carol Walk. Groups of people would dress up in old-fashioned Victorian clothes and walk from house to house singing Christmas carols. It was charming, wholesome, the kind of thing you'd see on a Hallmark movie. I'd only lived there for 2 months when Christmas 2015 rolled around. My landlord, an older woman named Patricia, told me all about the Carol Walk. She said it was mandatory to open your door and listen to at least one verse of whatever song they were singing. It was tradition. Bad luck if you didn't. I laughed, told her I didn't believe in luck. She didn't laugh back, just looked at me with this serious expression and said, "Doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. Just open the door when they knock." December 23rd came. I was home alone that night. My girlfriend at the time was visiting her parents in Boston. I had the house to myself, a bottle of whiskey, and a stack of movies I'd been meaning to watch. Around 8 p.m., I heard singing outside. Faint at first, then closer. I looked out the window and saw them. About 12 people dressed in long coats and scarves, carrying lanterns, walking up the snow-covered street. They were singing Silent Night in perfect harmony. They stopped at my neighbor's house, knocked on the door. The neighbor opened it, smiled, listened to them sing, and clapped when they finished. They moved on to the next house. I figured I should probably follow tradition. So when they reached my front porch and knocked, I opened the door. The singing stopped the second I appeared. All 12 of them just stood there, staring at me, not smiling, not moving, just staring with these blank expressions. Merry Christmas," I said. Nobody responded. One of them, a woman at the front, tilted her head. She was wearing a dark green coat and a bonnet that covered most of her face. But I could see her eyes. They were wide, too wide, like she was forcing them open. "You didn't listen last year," she said. I laughed nervously. "I wasn't here last year. I just moved in." She took a step closer. The others stayed perfectly still. "Yes, you were," she said. "You were here, and you didn't open the door." My stomach tightened. "I'm telling you, I wasn't here. This is my first Christmas in this town." Another person stepped forward. A man this time, tall, thin. His face was hidden by a scarf wrapped around his mouth and nose. "You have to let us in," he said. His voice was muffled, wet-sounding. "What?" I said. "No, that's not part of the tradition. You sing. I listen. That's it." The woman in the green coat shook her head. "Not anymore. Rules change. You have to let us in now." I felt my hand tighten on the door. "I don't think so. I think you should leave." They didn't move. I started to close the door, but one of them, a younger guy in the back, lunged forward and jammed his foot in the gap. The door bounced off his boot and swung back open. "Let in." The woman said it slowly, deliberately, like she was explaining something to a child. I shoved the door as hard as I could. The guy yelped and pulled his foot back. I slammed it shut and locked it, threw the deadbolt, backed away from the door. For a few seconds there was silence. Then they started singing again. But it wasn't Silent Night anymore. It wasn't any song I recognized. The words didn't make sense. It wasn't even English, just this low, droning chant that made my skin crawl. I ran to the window and peeked through the curtain. They were still standing on my porch, swaying slightly, all of them chanting in unison. Then, one by one, they turned their heads and looked directly at the window, directly at me, even though the curtain was closed, even though there was no way they could see me. I stepped back. My heart was racing. The chanting got louder, and I realized it wasn't just coming from outside. It was coming from inside the house too, upstairs. I grabbed a kitchen knife from the counter and slowly walked to the staircase. Each step creaked under my weight. The chanting was coming from my bedroom. The door was closed. I knew I'd left it open when I came downstairs earlier. I reached for the handle. My hand was shaking. When I pushed the door open, the chanting stopped. My bedroom was empty, but every single drawer in my dresser was open. My closet door was wide open, and on my bed, written in what looked like ash, were words. "You should have let us in." I didn't sleep that night. I sat downstairs with the lights on and the knife in my lap until the sun came up. When I finally went outside the next morning, there were footprints in the snow. 12 sets of footprints. They circled my house, over and over, like they'd been walking around the building all night. But here's the part that made me leave Vermont. The footprints didn't lead away from the house. They just stopped. All 12 sets of footprints ended in the middle of my backyard, like the people just vanished into thin air. I moved out on January 2nd. Didn't even finish out my lease. Patricia tried to stop me, said I was making a mistake. Said the town doesn't like it when people leave. I didn't care. I loaded my car and drove 15 hours straight back to California. But sometimes late at night I still hear it. That chanting. Faint, distant, like it's coming from somewhere far away. Or maybe it's closer than I think. Story 4. The lights on Elm Street. Christmas lights are supposed to be cheerful, bright, festive. They're supposed to make you feel warm inside, remind you of childhood, family, safety. But after what I saw in December 2018, I can't look at Christmas lights anymore without feeling sick. I was driving through Pennsylvania that year, middle of nowhere. Small towns scattered along Route 40 with nothing but farmland and forest between them. I was heading to Pittsburgh to spend Christmas with my brother. It was late, maybe 11 p.m., and I'd been driving for 6 hours straight. My GPS told me to take a detour because of road construction ahead. It rerouted me through some town I'd never heard of called Carver's Mill. Population 340, according to a faded sign on the side of the road. The town was small. One main street, maybe 20 houses, a church, a post office that looked abandoned. And every single house was covered in Christmas lights. Not normal lights, I mean completely covered. Every inch of every house. Roofs, windows, doors, trees, even the mailboxes. Thousands and thousands of lights, all different colors, all blinking in perfect synchronization. It was beautiful and deeply unsettling. I slowed down as I drove through, just staring at the displays. Some houses had animated reindeer in the yards. Others had Santa figures climbing ladders. One house had a massive inflatable snowman that had to be 20 feet tall. But there was nobody outside. No people admiring the lights. No kids playing in the snow. Every house was dark inside, like nobody lived there. Just these blazing, blinking, flashing lights on the outside and complete darkness within. I reached the end of the main street and my GPS told me to turn right onto Elm Street, a narrow residential road that curved into the woods. The first house on Elm Street made me stop the car. The lights weren't just on the house. They were arranged in patterns. Symbols. I couldn't tell what they were at first, but as I stared at them, shapes started to emerge. A spiral on the roof, a circle on the front door, lines connecting the windows in geometric patterns that hurt to look at. And in the center of the yard, spelled out in white lights, were words. Stop and watch. I sat there with my engine idling, staring at those words. My brain was telling me to drive, to get out of this town as fast as possible. but I couldn't move. I just sat there, staring at the lights. Then they started changing. The colors shifted. Red became blue. Blue became green. Green became something I don't have a name for. A color that shouldn't exist. A color that made my eyes water and my head pound. The patterns on the house started moving, rotating. The spiral on the roof spun faster and faster. The circle on the door pulsed like a heartbeat. And the lines between the windows began to writhe like living things. I heard a sound, low, humming, coming from the lights themselves. It wasn't electrical. It was organic, like the lights were breathing. My hands were locked on the steering wheel. Couldn't look away. The patterns were hypnotic, beautiful and horrifying at the same time. Then I saw movement in one of the windows. A face, pale, pressed against the glass, staring at me. No, not just one face. Multiple faces. Every window of the house had someone standing there, watching me, their faces all identical. Same expression, same angle, like mannequins positioned by someone with too much time and a very sick sense of humor. The humming got louder. I could feel it vibrating through my car, through my seat, through my bones. One of the figures in the window raised a hand, slowly, and pointed at me. Then all of them pointed. My foot slammed on the gas pedal. The car lurched forward. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to get away from that house, away from those faces, away from that sound. But as I sped down Elm Street, I realized something that made my blood turn to ice. Every house on the street was identical to the first one. Same lights, same patterns, same faces in the windows, all pointing at me as I drove past. And the street wasn't ending. I'd been driving for at least 2 minutes, but there was no intersection, no turn, just more houses, more lights, more faces. I looked at my speedometer, 60 miles per hour, but I wasn't moving. The same houses kept repeating, the same spiral, the same circle, the same pointing figures. I was stuck in a loop. Panic flooded my system. I jerked the wheel hard to the left, jumping the curb, tearing through someone's front yard. My tires ripped through snow and grass. I crashed through a white picket fence, sending pieces flying. The moment I left the road, the loop broke. I found myself back on the main street, the one I'd driven through minutes before. But now it was different. The lights were off. Every single house was dark. No decorations, no displays, just empty, lifeless homes. I didn't stop to figure out what happened. I drove until I found Route 40 again and didn't slow down until I reached Pittsburgh 3 hours later. The next day, I looked up Carver's Mill on my phone. Wanted to see if anyone else had experienced what I had. If there were stories, warnings. There was nothing. No town by that name in Pennsylvania. No Carver's Mill on any map. No census data. No historical records. It didn't exist. But I have a scar on my hand from where I gripped the steering wheel so hard that my nails broke the skin. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still see those patterns, those spirals and circles and lines, and I can still hear that humming. Last Christmas, I was driving through my neighborhood at night, just a normal street in a normal suburb, and I saw a house with lights arranged in a pattern that looked almost familiar, almost like a spiral. I turned around and took a different route home. I don't take chances with Christmas lights anymore. Story 5. The Gift. I don't exchange gifts with strangers anymore. Not since December 2017. I was working at a coffee shop in Austin, Texas. Morning shifts mostly. The place was busy during the holidays, full of people buying peppermint lattes and gingerbread cookies, rushing around to finish their Christmas shopping. On December 22nd, a man came in around 10 a.m. He was probably in his 50s, average height, glasses, wearing a brown jacket and a plain red scarf. Nothing about him stood out. He looked like every other customer. He ordered a black coffee, paid in cash, left a decent tip. As he was leaving, he stopped at the door and turned back to me. "Excuse me," he said. "I have something for you." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box, wrapped in green paper with a gold bow. He set it on the counter in front of me. "What's this?" I asked. "A gift," he said, smiling. "Merry Christmas." "I can't accept this," I said. "I don't even know you." His smile didn't fade. "That's okay. You will." Before I could respond, he walked out the door and disappeared into the crowd outside. I stood there staring at the box. My coworker, Rachel, came over and picked it up. "Secret admirer?" she joked. "I guess," I said, but something about it felt wrong. Rachel shook the box. "Aren't you going to open it?" I didn't want to, but she kept pushing, and eventually I gave in. I untied the bow and tore off the wrapping paper. Inside was a small wooden box, plain, no markings. I opened it. There was a piece of paper folded inside. I unfolded it. It was a photograph, old, faded, black and white. The photo showed a woman standing in front of a house. She was smiling, wearing a dress from maybe the 1950s, and behind her, barely visible in the window of the house, was a face. A man's face, pale, staring directly at the camera. I flipped the photo over. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, were 3 words. "She didn't know." "That's creepy," Rachel said, looking over my shoulder. "You should throw it away." I should have, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I thought there was some explanation that would make sense. I put the photo back in the box and took it home with me after my shift. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept pulling the photo out and staring at it. The woman looked happy, unaware, but the face in the window looked wrong. The expression was too intense, too focused. I fell asleep with the box on my nightstand. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of scratching. Soft, rhythmic, like nails dragging across wood. It was coming from inside the box. I turned on the lamp and grabbed the box. My hands were shaking. I opened it slowly. The photo was different. The woman was still there, still smiling, but the face in the window was gone. And now there was something written across the bottom of the photo in red ink. "Turn around." I dropped the box, spun around. There was a man standing in the corner of my bedroom, the same man from the coffee shop, still wearing the brown jacket, still smiling, but his eyes were wrong, completely white, no pupils, no color. "Did you like my gift?" he asked. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. He took a step closer. "I've been waiting for you to open it. I've been waiting a long time. Who are you?" I whispered. "You'll remember soon," he said. "Everyone remembers eventually." He reached out with one hand. His fingers were too long, joints bending in places they shouldn't. I screamed, grabbed the lamp from my nightstand and threw it at him. Passed right through him. Crashed into the wall. Glass shattered. He laughed. A dry, hollow sound. "You can't hurt me," he said. "I'm not really here. Not yet." "What do you want?" I asked. He tilted his head. "I want you to keep the gift. I want you to look at it every day. And when you finally understand what it means, I'll come back. And next time I'll be real." Then he was gone. Just vanished. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in my living room with every light on until the sun came up. The next day, I took the box to the coffee shop and threw it in the dumpster out back. I told myself I was done with it. Whatever sick game this was, I wasn't playing. But when I got home that night, the box was sitting on my kitchen table. I threw it away again, drove it to a dumpster 3 miles away, came back. I tried burning it. The box wouldn't catch fire. I tried burying it. I dug a hole in the woods behind my apartment complex and buried it 3 feet deep. The next morning, it was on my doorstep. That was 6 years ago. The box is still here. I've stopped trying to get rid of it. Keep it in a drawer now. I don't open it. I don't look at the photo. But sometimes late at night I hear that scratching sound. And I know the photo is changing again. I know one day I'll open that box and the woman in the photo will be me. And when that happens, he'll come back. Story 6. The Snowman. My daughter Emma was 6 years old in December 2020. We were living in Colorado at the time. Small house on the edge of town with a big backyard that backed up to woods. Emma loved snow, loved winter, loved everything about Christmas. So when we woke up on December 20th to find 6 inches of fresh snow, she was ecstatic. She begged me to help her build a snowman. I was working from home that day, busy with meetings, but she had those big eyes and that smile, and I couldn't say no. We spent an hour outside, built a decent-sized snowman in the middle of the backyard, used a carrot for the nose, buttons for the eyes, sticks for the arms. Emma found an old scarf in the garage and wrapped it around the snowman's neck. When we finished, she stepped back and admired it with this proud look on her face. "He's perfect," she said. "He is," I agreed. "Good job, kiddo." We went inside. I made hot chocolate. Emma sat by the window, staring out at her snowman. That night, after Emma went to bed, I was working late in my office. Around midnight, I got up to get some water. As I walked past the kitchen window, I glanced outside. The snowman had moved. Not by much, just a few feet to the left, closer to the house. I blinked, stared at it, told myself I was imagining things, that maybe the wind had knocked it over and it just looked like it moved. But the snowman was still standing, perfectly upright, just in a different spot. I checked on Emma. She was asleep in her bed, her nightlight casting soft shadows across the room. I went back to the kitchen and looked out the window again. The snowman was still there, same position, same distance from the house. Maybe I had been mistaken about where we built it. I'd been distracted during the day, wasn't paying attention. I went to bed. The next morning, Emma ran to the window before breakfast. I heard her gasp, "Daddy, look!" I walked over. The snowman was now right up against the back door, close enough that if I opened the door, I could touch it. "How did he get there?" Emma asked. Her voice was excited, not scared. "Maybe the wind blew him," I said, but I didn't believe it. "Wind can't move snowmen, Daddy. Someone moved him." She was right, and that someone wasn't me. I opened the back door and stepped outside. The snowman was exactly as we'd built it. Same carrot nose, same button eyes, same stick arms. But there was something else. Something I didn't remember from yesterday. The mouth. We hadn't given the snowman a mouth, but now it had one. A wide, curved line made from small black rocks. And the curve wasn't a smile. It was a grin. Too wide, too many teeth. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "Emma, go inside," I said. "Why? Just go." She pouted but listened. I heard the door close behind her. I stood there staring at the snowman, at that grin, at the button eyes that seemed to be looking directly at me. I kicked it, hard. My boot connected with the base and the whole thing collapsed into a pile of snow. I went back inside, locked the door, told Emma the snowman fell over and we'd build a new one tomorrow. That night I woke up to a sound. Tapping. Soft. Persistent. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from downstairs, from the back door. I got out of bed and grabbed the baseball bat I kept in the closet. Walked downstairs slowly. The tapping continued. Tap, tap, tap. I reached the kitchen. The back door was closed, locked, but through the window I saw it. The snowman, rebuilt, standing right outside the door, exactly as it had been before I destroyed it. And it was tapping on the glass with one of its stick arms. I didn't move, just stood there, frozen, watching as the stick scraped against the window. Slow, deliberate. The button eyes weren't just buttons anymore. They were looking at me. I don't know how. They were just pieces of plastic. But they were looking at me. The grin was wider now. More rocks. More teeth. I backed away from the door. My hand fumbled for my phone. I called 911. When the police arrived 20 minutes later, the snowman was gone. Just a pile of scattered snow in the yard. The officer walked around the property, checked the woods, found nothing. Probably some kids messing with you, he said. Happens around the holidays. But I knew it wasn't kids. We moved out of that house in February. Didn't wait for winter to end. Didn't care about breaking the lease. Emma asks sometimes why we left so suddenly. I tell her we needed a change, a fresh start. But the real reason is that every night before we left, I would wake up to that tapping. And every morning, the snowman would be closer to Emma's bedroom window. On our last night there, I woke up and looked outside. The snowman was pressed against her window. The stick arms were reaching up, scratching at the glass. And that grin, that horrible grin, it wasn't made of rocks anymore. It was made of teeth. Real teeth. We left before sunrise. Story 7. The Christmas Party. I was invited to a Christmas party in December 2019. My coworker, a guy named Steven, had been talking about it for weeks. Said it was at his friend's house. Big place out in the countryside. Lots of people. Food. Drinks. A real celebration. I almost didn't go. I'm not big on parties. But my girlfriend at the time convinced me. Said it would be fun. A chance to relax before the holidays. We drove out on December 21st. The address Steven gave us led to a long driveway that cut through dense woods. The house was huge. 3 stories. Old Victorian style. Every window glowing with warm light. Cars lined the driveway. At least 30 of them. Music thumped from inside. We could hear laughter. Voices. We walked up to the front door and knocked. A woman answered. Tall. Dark hair. Wearing a red dress. She smiled at us. You must be Steven's friends, she said. Come in. The house was packed. People everywhere. Dancing. Talking. Drinking. The decorations were elaborate. Garland wrapped around the staircase. A massive Christmas tree in the corner. Lights everywhere. It looked perfect. Too perfect. We found Steven near the kitchen. He was drunk. Laughing. He threw his arm around me and shouted over the music. You made it. This is amazing, right? It was. But something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. My girlfriend wandered off to get drinks. I stayed with Steven watching the crowd. And that's when I noticed. Nobody was leaving. People would walk toward the front door like they were heading out. But then they'd stop. Turn around. Go back to the party. Like they'd forgotten what they were doing. I watched it happen 3 times in 10 minutes. Steven, I said, when does this party end? He looked at me with glassy eyes. End? It doesn't end. It's the best party ever. Why would it end? People have to go home eventually. He laughed. Why would anyone want to leave? A woman bumped into me, apologized, kept walking. As she passed, I noticed something. Her dress. It was soaked, like she'd been standing in the rain. But it hadn't rained. It was snowing outside. I followed her with my eyes. She walked to the corner of the room and stood there, perfectly still, staring at the wall. I looked around. There were others doing the same thing, standing in corners, motionless, staring at nothing. "Stephen, who are these people?" "Friends," he said. "Friends of friends." Does it matter? It did, because I was starting to realize I didn't recognize anyone here except Stephen. My girlfriend came back holding 2 drinks. She handed me one. "This place is insane," she said. "There's a whole ballroom upstairs." "I think we should leave," I said. She frowned. "We just got here. Something's wrong." "You're being paranoid." Maybe I was, but I couldn't shake the feeling. The woman in the corner hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. I walked over to her, stood right in front of her. "Excuse me," I said. "Are you okay?" She didn't respond, just kept staring at the wall. I waved my hand in front of her face. Nothing. Then she turned her head, slowly, and looked at me. Her eyes were white, completely white. No pupils, no color, and she smiled. "You should stay," she whispered. "Everyone stays eventually." I backed away, grabbed my girlfriend's arm. "We're leaving. Now." We pushed through the crowd toward the front door. But the closer we got, the thicker the crowd became. People pressed in on us from all sides, their faces too close, their breath too warm. I shoved someone out of the way. They didn't react, just stood there, smiling. We reached the door. I grabbed the handle and pulled. It didn't open. Locked. I tried again. Nothing. "Let us out," I shouted. The music stopped. The entire room went silent. Everyone turned to look at us. Dozens of faces, all smiling, all silent. The woman in the red dress appeared at the top of the staircase. "Leaving so soon?" she asked. Her voice echoed through the house. "The party just started." "Open the door," I said. "You don't want to leave. Trust me. It's much better here. Open the door." She descended the stairs slowly, gracefully. When she reached the bottom, she walked toward us. Her smile never wavered. "You're confused," she said. "Everyone is confused at first, but you'll understand soon." I noticed something. On the wall next to the door, a framed photograph. It showed the house, this house, but the photo was old, faded, and there were people in the photo, standing on the porch, dozens of them, all wearing old-fashioned clothes, all smiling. My girlfriend gasped, "That's me." I looked closer. She was right. One of the faces in the photo looked exactly like her. And next to her was a face that looked exactly like me. "You've been here before," the woman said. "You always come back. Every Christmas. Like everyone else." The crowd started moving closer, tightening around us, their smiles widening. I did the only thing I could think of. I picked up a chair and smashed it through the window next to the door. Glass exploded outward. Cold air rushed in. We jumped through, landed in the snow, ran to our car. As we sped down the driveway, I looked back. The house was dark. Every light off. No music. No people. Just an empty, silent building. We reported it to the police the next day. Gave them the address. They checked it out. The house had been abandoned for 40 years. Condemned. No power. No water. No heat. Nobody had lived there since a fire killed 17 people during a Christmas party in 1979. Stephen never came back to work. Nobody's heard from him since that night. And sometimes, when I drive past old houses at night, I see lights in the windows, hear music, laughter, but I never stop to check, because I know what happens to people who go to parties that never end. Story 8. The Carolers. December 23, 2017. I was house-sitting for my aunt in rural Vermont while she spent Christmas with my cousins in Boston. The house sat at the end of a long gravel driveway, surrounded by dense pine forest on 3 sides. The nearest neighbor was half a mile down the road. My aunt had asked me to watch the place, feed her 2 cats, and keep the pipes from freezing. Easy money, I thought. A quiet week in the woods to finish my thesis. The first 2 days were exactly what I needed. Silent mornings with coffee and my laptop. The cats curled up near the wood stove. Snow falling softly outside the windows. By the 3rd night, I'd made real progress on my work and decided to reward myself with some of my aunt's expensive whiskey and an old horror movie. Around 8 p.m., I heard singing. At first, I thought it was coming from the TV, but I'd paused the movie to get more ice. The singing continued, faint but clear. Christmas carols. Multiple voices harmonizing together, getting closer. I walked to the front window and pulled back the curtain. The driveway was dark except for the glow from the porch light, but I could see them now. 5 figures walking up the long driveway toward the house. They were singing "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen," their voices echoing through the frozen air. Carolers, in the middle of nowhere, at 8 p.m. on a Friday night. Something felt wrong immediately. They were too far from any other houses, too far from town, and they were walking slowly, deliberately, like they had all the time in the world. I watched them approach. For adults and what looked like a teenager. They wore dark coats and scarves wrapped around their faces despite it not being that cold. Maybe 20 degrees. Cold, sure, but not scarf-wrapped around your entire face cold. They reached the porch steps and stopped singing. Just stood there in a line, staring at the door. Waiting. I didn't move. Something in my gut told me not to open that door. One of the cats hissed from somewhere behind me, which never happened. These were friendly cats, the kind that rubbed against strangers' legs. After about 30 seconds of silence, one of them knocked. 3 slow knocks. I stayed frozen behind the curtain, watching through the gap. I could see their breath misting in the cold air. None of them moved except the one who'd knocked, who now tilted their head to the side like they were listening. The knock came again, louder. I pulled out my phone and texted my aunt. "Did you tell anyone I was staying here?" Her response came quickly, "No, why?" Before I could answer, the singing started again. But this time it wasn't a Christmas carol. It was something else. Words I didn't recognize in a language I'd never heard. The melody was wrong, discordant. It made my teeth hurt. The teenager moved away from the group and walked to the living room window where I was standing. They pressed their face against the glass, and I jerked backward. Through the scarf, I could see their eyes, wide, unblinking, staring directly at where I'd been standing. They knew I was in here. The singing got louder. The other 4 spread out, 2 moving toward the back of the house, 2 staying at the front door. They were surrounding the house. I ran to the kitchen and checked the back door. Locked. Then to the side door that led to the garage. Also locked. I grabbed my aunt's largest kitchen knife from the block and went back to the living room. The teenager was gone from the window, but I could hear footsteps on the porch. All of them were up there now, moving around, testing the windows. One of the windows in my aunt's bedroom upstairs rattled. Someone was trying to open it. I called 911. 911, what's your emergency? There are people trying to break into my house. 5 of them. They're trying the windows. What's your location? I gave her the address and she said deputies were on their way, but it would take at least 15 minutes. The nearest sheriff's station was in town, 20 miles away. Stay on the line with me, she said. Are you somewhere safe? I'm in the living room. They're all around the house. Can you get to a room with a lock? A bathroom or bedroom? Before I could answer, the power went out. The whole house went black. The only light came from the wood stove's dying embers and my phone screen. The footsteps above me stopped. Everything went silent. "Ma'am?" The dispatcher's voice crackled. "Are you still there? The power just went out. Stay calm. Deputies are 12 minutes away." I used my phone's flashlight to navigate to the downstairs bathroom. It was small, windowless, with a heavy wooden door and a lock. I locked myself inside and sat on the floor with my back against the door, knife in one hand, phone in the other. Then I heard the back door open. Not break open, just open, like someone had a key. Footsteps entered the kitchen. Slow, casual, multiple sets. They weren't rushing. They were taking their time. "They're inside," I whispered to the dispatcher. "Help is coming. Stay quiet. Stay where you are." The footsteps moved through the kitchen into the living room. I heard furniture scraping across the floor. Drawers opening. They were searching the house. One set of footsteps climbed the stairs. Another moved down the hallway toward where I was hiding. I could see a shadow under the bathroom door. Someone standing right outside. The door handle turned. I pressed my feet against the opposite wall, bracing myself. The handle turned again, more forcefully. Then whoever it was knocked. 3 soft knocks. A woman's voice spoke through the door. Soft, almost gentle. "We know you're in there, sweetie. We just want to talk. It's Christmas. Don't you want to celebrate?" I didn't breathe, didn't move. "We brought you gifts. Beautiful gifts. Open the door and we'll show you." The handle rattled harder now. The door shook in its frame. "Open the door." Her voice changed, got deeper, angry, not human. Something heavy slammed against the door. Once, twice. The wood cracked. I could see it splintering near the handle. Then I heard it. Sirens. Faint but getting closer. The slamming stopped. Footsteps retreated quickly. I heard the back door slam shut and then nothing but silence and the approaching sirens. I stayed in that bathroom until I heard the deputies calling my name. When they finally got me out, I was shaking so hard I couldn't stand. The back door was wide open. Snow had blown into the kitchen. But here's what made my blood freeze. The back door had been locked from the inside. The deadbolt was still engaged. They'd opened a locked door from the outside, came inside, and left it locked behind them. The deputies searched the woods with flashlights and dogs. They found footprints leading away from the house, but the prints disappeared at the tree line. Just stopped, like the 5 people had vanished into thin air. On the kitchen table, they found 5 packages wrapped in black paper. The deputies opened them while I watched from the doorway. Each box contained the same thing, a dead bird, crows, with their eyes missing. Under each bird was a handwritten note in old-fashioned script. "See you next Christmas." The investigation went nowhere. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing stolen. The power company said the outage was caused by a blown transformer, but couldn't explain why only my aunt's house lost power and none of the neighbors did. I didn't stay another night. I left that evening and never went back. My aunt sold the house 4 months later without ever asking me what really happened. I think she knew I wouldn't tell her. But every Christmas since then, I get a card in the mail. No return address, just 5 words written inside. "We're still singing for you." Story 9. The Gift Exchange. December 20th, 2015. My girlfriend Emma and I were driving back to Minneapolis from her parents' cabin in northern Wisconsin. We'd left later than planned, around 7 p.m., because her dad wanted to show me his new ice fishing setup and lost track of time. The drive should have taken 3 hours, but an hour in, we hit a snowstorm that slowed everything to a crawl. By 9 p.m., we were on a dark country highway with maybe 1 car passing every 10 minutes. The snow was coming down thick, and Emma was getting nervous about the roads. We just started talking about finding a hotel when the car made a sound like a gunshot and lurched to the right. Flat tire. I pulled onto the shoulder and we sat there for a minute, watching snow pile up on the windshield. My phone had 1 bar of service. Emma's was dead because she'd forgotten to charge it before we left. "I'll change it," I said. "Won't take long." It was freezing outside, the kind of cold that burns your lungs when you breathe. I got the spare and the jack from the trunk and started working while Emma stayed in the car with the heat running. I'd just gotten the car jacked up when headlights appeared behind us. An old pickup truck, rust showing through faded blue paint, pulled up and stopped about 20 feet back. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out. He was maybe 60, wearing a heavy work coat and a hunting cap with the flaps down. Thick beard covered most of his face. "Need help?" he called out. "I got it, thanks," I yelled back over the wind. He walked closer anyway, hands in his pockets. "Nasty night for a flat. You got everything you need?" "Yeah, I'm good. Almost done." He nodded but didn't leave, just stood there watching me work. I could feel his eyes on me as I loosened the lug nuts. Something about the way he stood there, not offering to help, just watching, made my neck prickle. "You folks headed to Minneapolis?" he asked. "Yeah. Long drive in this weather. Dangerous, too. Roads get icy this time of night." I grunted in response, focusing on getting the wheel off. Emma was watching from inside the car. I could see her silhouette in the passenger seat. "Pretty girl you got there," the man said. I stopped working and looked at him. "Excuse me?" He smiled. Most of his teeth were missing. "Your girlfriend. Pretty girl. You're lucky." "Thanks," I said carefully, going back to the tire. I wanted him gone. "My wife and I used to drive this road every Christmas," he continued. "Back when she was alive. She loved Christmas. Decorations, music, all of it. Made the house look like Santa's workshop." "That's nice," I muttered, threading the new tire onto the bolts. "She died 3 years ago, Christmas Eve. Carbon monoxide leak. I found her in the morning, still in bed. Looked like she was sleeping. I didn't know what to say to that. "I'm sorry." "It's all right. I'll see her again soon. Real soon." Something in his voice made me look up. He was staring at Emma now, and his smile had gotten wider. "You know what she used to say?" he continued. "She said the best Christmas gifts are the ones you don't expect. Surprises. The kind that change everything." I stood up, tire iron still in my hand. "Look, man, I appreciate you stopping, but I need to finish this so we can get going." He didn't move, just kept staring at the car. At Emma. "I got you folks a gift," he said. "Early Christmas present. It's in my truck. Want to see?" "No, we're good. Thank you." "Oh, but I insist. The special." Took me a long time to find the perfect one. He started walking toward his truck. Every instinct I had screamed at me to get Emma and run, but we were in the middle of nowhere in a snowstorm with a half-changed tire. He reached into his truck bed and pulled out something wrapped in a tarp. Something big. He carried it toward us, and I gripped the tire iron tighter. "Really, we don't need anything," I said loudly. Emma must have sensed something was wrong because she opened the car door and stepped out. "Babe, everything okay? Get back in the car," I said without taking my eyes off the man. He was 15 feet away now, holding whatever was in that tarp. "Don't be rude. I brought you a gift. The least you could do is look at it." "Put it down and leave," I said, raising the tire iron. "Now." He stopped walking. His smile disappeared. For a long moment, we just stared at each other while snow fell between us. Then he started laughing. Deep, wheezing laughter that turned into coughing. He dropped the tarp on the ground. "You're no fun," he said. "No Christmas spirit at all." He walked back to his truck, still laughing. Got in. Sat there with the engine running, watching us. I quickly finished changing the tire, threw everything in the trunk, and got Emma in the car. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the steering wheel. "What was that about?" Emma asked. "What did he want?" "I don't know. Just go. We need to go." I pulled back onto the highway. The truck followed us. For the next 20 miles, his headlights stayed right behind us. Not too close, but close enough that I could see him in the rearview mirror. Whenever I sped up, he sped up. When I slowed down, he slowed down. Emma called 911 on my phone, but service kept cutting in and out. We couldn't get through. Then we saw it, a rest stop ahead. Lights on. Other cars in the parking lot. People. I pulled in fast and parked right in front of the main building. The truck drove past slowly, the driver staring at us as he went by. Then he was gone, taillights disappearing into the snow. We sat there for 30 minutes, making sure he wasn't coming back. Finally convinced he was gone, we went inside to use the bathroom and get coffee. My hands had finally stopped shaking. When we came back out, there was something on our windshield. A piece of paper under the wiper blade. Emma grabbed it before I could stop her. She unfolded it and went pale. "What does it say?" I asked. She handed it to me, written in shaky handwriting. "You should have opened the gift. Now I'll have to give it to someone else. Merry Christmas. Maybe I'll see you next year." Underneath the message was a photo, printed on regular printer paper. It showed Emma and me at her parents' cabin from earlier that day. Standing on the dock, I was holding a fishing rod. Emma was laughing at something I'd said. He'd been watching us, had followed us from the cabin, had been planning this. We drove straight to the police station in the next town and filed a report. Gave them the description of the truck, the license plate number I'd memorized, everything. They found the truck 2 days later, abandoned on a logging road 40 miles away. It had been stolen 3 weeks earlier from a farm near Duluth. They never found the owner, never found out who he was or what was in that tarp. But a week after Christmas, a hiker found something in the woods near where we'd had the flat tire. A grave, fresh, covered with pine branches. When they excavated it, they found the body of a woman in her 20s. She'd been reported missing from a rest stop on the same highway 3 days before our encounter. Cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, and she was wrapped in the same kind of tarp the man had been carrying. The police think we were supposed to be next, that our flat tire had been intentional, that he'd somehow caused it, waiting for the right victims on the right night. Emma and I don't drive that highway anymore. We take the long way around, even if it adds 2 hours to the trip. And we don't stop for anyone on dark roads, no matter how much they seem to need help. Because sometimes the person offering to help you is the last person you'll ever meet. And sometimes Christmas gifts come wrapped in tarps, and you should thank God you never opened them. Finally, I still celebrate Christmas, still put up a tree, still exchange gifts with my family. But I don't trust the season like I used to. Don't assume that every knock on the door is friendly. Don't believe that every invitation is safe. Because somewhere out there, in the dark spaces between towns, in the houses that look too perfect, in the lights that blink in patterns you can't quite understand, something is waiting. And it's always waiting at Christmas. If you've ever felt like something was watching you during the holidays, if you've ever heard sounds you couldn't explain, if you've ever seen something that made your blood run cold, you're not crazy. You're just one of the lucky ones who got away. Merry Christmas. And whatever you do, don't answer the door after midnight.